everyone, thank you for joining us on this first bootcamp session as part of Biosocial Scotland. I'm going to share a quick slide with you until everyone has joined us and tell you a little bit more about what we are tackling today and who are our speakers. So there we go. So yes, thank you so much for joining. We're really happy to have you. This session is part of an online support program. So you probably saw that there are 8 in total, and you're free to sort of like pick and mix, sign up to any of them. It's free tickets. So if you know anyone else who's interested and could find it valuable, then please share the word. You can see the whole program on biosocialscotland.com/bootcamp. And if you are a social enterprise that sells products, services, or experiences that fall under the ethical gifting category, then we would love to hear from you, because this campaign that we're working on will be running from mid-November, and essentially it's promoting social enterprises' ethical gifts in the lead up to Christmas. Without further ado, let me tell you a bit more about what we're doing today. So essentially, we are working on this theme of developing a narrative around your social enterprise. How can you talk about your mission, your values, what you're all about? How do you hone in on these themes, and how do you sort of craft storytelling that you can come back to again and again to express your brand? We are super lucky to have 2 really good speakers today, so we're starting high. We have Colin McMillan, who has been with Firstport for 5 years. He was a business advisor and currently is a program manager. So if you're not familiar with Firstport, they are an organization that helps social entrepreneurs to bring forward their ideas and bring them to life. So they support founders both with tailored advice, they have workshops, and they also distribute startup funding. And we have Lara Friedman, who has been with the Social Enterprise Academy for 6 years. She's head of operations and partnerships there. And essentially, Lara's background is in learning and development. So her work supports both personal and organizational development. And wherever you are sort of like on your journey and on your growth journey as a social enterprise, then you can sort of chat to the Academy about helping you sort of thrive and learn and also network with other social enterprises. So a final note before we jump in, please ask any questions as we go along into the chat box of this webinar. It's going to be great because we have 15 minutes at the end. So we are going to do a good Q&A, and this is an opportunity to run any kind of burning questions you have or challenge you're facing around today's topic. And really, we have good speakers to kind of answer them. And then that's it, we can jump in. So Colin will start, and thank you so much both for taking part.
Yeah, thanks, Jessie. That's a great intro. And just to emphasise or re-emphasise, Colin McMillan from Firstport, and we provide startup support for social entrepreneurs, right from kernel of an idea all the way through to through a funding programme. Start it is up to £5,000, build it up to £25,000. And once you've done a little bit of track record of selling stuff and social impact, a Boost It programme, which is funding of up to £50,000 repayable grant, and then our Launch Me programme, which is the programme that I run, which is matching up grants and private investment with the entrepreneur to scale up, depending on what the scale up need or ask is. So there's a range of things that we do, and we also provide business support through the Just Enterprise programme, support programme. So a range of stuff. And if you haven't already spoken to us, then we'd obviously love to hear from you if you're looking to start up social enterprise, or indeed go on and and work with with us at different stages of the process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen with you now and go through a presentation on So yeah, Lara and I are going to split things in two a little bit. I'm going to talk around storytelling and brand voice to promote your organisation, and Lara's going to move into maybe pick up on anything that I miss out on or correct me. And then she'll do a bit on elevator pitches so that you can a master class on that. So in terms of what we're going to be covering in my portion here, so I think it's really important, and I know that I've got a specific thing to cover, but always want to go back to that social enterprise business model, because this is absolutely critical when you're looking at engaging people, because we've got it hard when you're talking about social entrepreneurs and social enterprises. Which we'll unwrap a little bit. Vision and mission, and impact, and I put a wee question mark there, not because I don't think it's important, but because it's part of that social enterprise business model and clarifying what your story is and for whom the story is for. Identifying your target audience, who your target is, whether it's customer or client / social beneficiary. We'll talk a little bit about that. Going into brand identity, your brand voice, and elements of creating engaging content as well, and starting with your story there. So in terms of the social enterprise business model, just going right back to the start, what we have to be thinking about is that this is a business that you're setting up or have set up, and it's on the right hand side of this space is a customer that has a demands-led service. You're going to sell stuff to services or products to customers that are willing to pay for it. And that's a unique thing compared to, on the left-hand side, those social beneficiaries, or what I've also got clients in there. So social beneficiaries, clients, which is a needs-based service or product. And that you've got to be really super clear that those are two distinct things in a social enterprise. Otherwise, you can easily mix your message, and it's usually mixing your message for the worse. So if you could clarify those things, you're on the right track. But doing that right at the start is critical. And I've put contractor in the middle, not because it's kind of run middle of the mill, but if you are working with a local authority or other contractors, it might be that there are customers that are looking for, that you deliver your services to, who target a beneficiary. So it's important to clarify these things, because it's important to know who your target audience is before you sell the story. So that is one of the key take homes, is understanding that audience and and clarifying that. And going to that business model canvas. So some of you at an early stage might use this to develop your business idea. And the thing that's missing from this is that we've got customer relationships and channels to get the solution to the customer, or the customer to the solution, but we don't have clients or social beneficiaries in there. And that's something that I would also add in, is there's an additional relationship with clients or social beneficiaries and different channels to get to them as well, possibly a different solution. So that's a key part to starting that the engaging content and telling a story, is knowing who you're telling it to. So having that really super clear is really important. In terms of problems with startups, yeah, when you're starting things off, money can be a problem, marketing. I've had so many conversations with people around sales that people can't sell things. And that's, I guess, a large part around storytelling, is selling the thing that you're trying to get across. So in terms of, but aside from those key things, poor branding, absolute classic issue. So getting it right, having that unique value proposition is so important. And I guess it's something that Lara might move into, or certainly we can talk about in the Q&As around starting with the why. But also that you need to make sure that you have a strong, unique brand voice, which we will talk about as well. So you need to have that vision and mission clear. So what do we mean by those things? Well, just here's a few ideas of what some big organizations use. So it's an impact statement. It's that, it's got the core ideals and beliefs and purpose in there. So Disney, to make people happy, Oxfam, a world without poverty. These are really high level impact statements, which is obvious, therefore, what underlines a lot of the stuff that they do. And then we go into our mission statement, so slightly different in terms of describing the who, the what, and the why. A bit more actionable stuff in there, as opposed to the high-level impact statement. And here's just a couple that are, I suppose, expressing some of that. Disney here and Oxfam are bringing out some of that instead of simply the purpose is, instead of simply that high-level vision, few words. There's a little bit more of the who, the what, and the why in there. It's so important to have that planned approach. If you don't go back to the start and the drawing board to really look through what it is you're trying to do, and list all your clients and customers, then you really won't know. You'll be shooting in the dark, a bit scattergun. So in terms of that planned approach, we need to understand the target audience, customers, clients. Who is it you're reaching out to? Understanding your brand, your story, determining what you want to accomplish from the stuff that you're reaching out with, and choosing the right places to reach out. And often social media is a place that people go to, but it's got to be with purpose. Oh, I've got to have a Twitter account. Well, why? Who is it that you're reaching out to? Who uses Twitter? If you're reaching out to people that don't use Twitter, what's the point? So it's understanding that it's a planned approach. So in terms of your target audience, customers or beneficiaries or both. I think that, when we're talking about target audience, it's a group of people defined by certain demographics, certain behaviors, and you really understand, you get into the, under the skin of who that person is and what that persona is. So you need to make sure you understand all of those elements, and discover what kind of people are most likely to be interested in the thing that you're providing. This is absolutely key. So the sort of, a profile might have, so name, the type of, so it might not have a name, but this is you building a profile so it makes it into a person. Gender's female, 27, from Edinburgh, charity worker, enjoys what the hobbies are, interests are, and what they live by, the codes that they live by, those morals, some of the political leanings, ambitions. These are all things that are really important to understand that individual better. And they're going to be key to engaging that individual with through specific content and through specific channels. So in terms of what we talked about brand voice. What do we mean by brand voice? Well, it's the personality and emotion that infused into the company's communications. It's everything from words and languages that you might use all the way through to personality and images through your marketing, and that your marketing aims to inspire and invoke. And it's also the tone of voice is really, really important. The way that you use the words is really, really important. So in terms of, what do we mean by tone of voice? Well, if we look at brand personality and values, there's 5 that we've identified. So there's sincerity, excitement, competence, sophistication, ruggedness. These are key areas that you might want to pick. Probably one, although you'll likely want to be an element of more than one, possibly 3, 4, possibly even 5 of these. You don't want people to think that you're not competent as an organization, obviously, but there's an element of making sure that you that you've got the right the right tone of voice and the right personality and values in there. So if excitement is the key thing, you might have elements of sincerity and confidence in there, but it's going to be more about the excitement to really capture the target audience. Yeah, it's really hard. It's social enterprise business model makes it really hard if it's not done right, because of that combination between the customers that you're trying to engage and the social beneficiaries that you're perhaps trying to impact on. My rule of thumb is usually go for the customers and make sure you've got that model. But you do want a brand that does work for everything. So it's well, how do we work with partners as well as our social beneficiaries? So it's an important part in the in the whole thing. But usually I would say customers are key. Here's just a few examples, and apologies, just a little bit difficult to see possibly. Lingo Flamingo, tackling dementia through language. There's an element of fun in here. So there's a kind of, okay, yep, I've got something here. But tackling dementia through language, it's, you know, it's quite clear that there's elements across those, well, certainly the top 4 brand personalities. Social bite. What does that tell you? What does this make you feel? Is there an element of excitement? Well, possibly not, but certainly there's an element of you know, sociable. So probably is some elements of excitement in here, but it's a space of you know, a space that you would be socializing. So probably an element of sincerity in here too. So providing food and drinks, you need to be able to do that in a clean environment. So you're thinking competence as well. And homes for good, very much not about excitement, but very much about competence. So you can see that it's a big social enterprise brand that's about competence and probably an element of sincerity in there. These are all, you can see that the branding has been done very, very purposefully. So in terms of brand identity, point 1, there's three ways in my mind here. Why you? What's your unique value proposition? What value are you adding to the individual that you've identified as your target audience? And what differentiates you from the competition? Don't mention competition, then we're really doing a disservice. It's got to be something unique. So you have to understand what your competition is doing so that you can then stand out. So that's a part of building this relevant brand, relevant content. Speaking the language of your target audience, if you don't know, this is the biggest mistake. Don't know your target audience, you won't be able to reach out to them with suitable content. So research your audience, bring them along the journey, understand their behaviors and what makes them tick. How does your brand add value to that individual? You know, what's the experience that they're going to be going through when they use you? You know, returning customers, make sure you hook them in. Content should speak to them on a personal level. It's got to be emotive, and it's got to make their lives better. So these are all key things around that language that you're going to be using, is coming up with these with words that are used that suit that. Also telling the story that brings about powerful connections, emotions coming through. So you're going to really hook people in with something that really, you know, makes them emotionally bound to the thing that you do. So relationships are really important. And if you bring people along through focus groups and customer groups, then that's a really worthwhile thing to do right at the early stages, because it helps you with your story. And a lot of people talk around what's the best legal structure for me, and I often suggest that people think, and I'm not suggesting to you that you think about this, but the Community Benefit Society through and community share offering is always a great way to engage people, because it's around engage people to buy in physically to the enterprise that you're setting up. So it's bringing people along that journey. In terms of creating engaging content, the company might sell the products, but the brand itself is the thing that's telling the story. So how do we make sure that we go through that in a clear way? So we use the 80-20 rule. So 80% has to be something that adds value to your followers, and then no more than 20% being promotional content. So you don't want to be banging people over the head with stuff. And the reason is that the first few lines they'll read and then they'll go off and not be so interested. So that's really critical. Don't go too far off the topic. You know, in terms of your business story, having relevant content is key. And also being authentic and transparent and honest are all really important. So talk about you and your team. Explain who you are. Bring people along into it and open the door into your organization. And like I say, the honesty and transparency here is really important. And getting challenged by your customers or by these people is absolutely fine, because it allows you to respond in a suitable way. So it's something to be thinking about here. In terms of what makes a good story, Well, there's a range of things you want to get into, into somebody's mind with a really good story. And stories are things that we use so often, even at night, as Jonathan Gutschall talks about. So in terms of what makes good connections with people, keeping us on our toes, we like to laugh, well, we like to cry as well. Something that reminds us, that we actually matter as customers. Inspires us to do something about it. Well, so what? Yeah, that was a good story, and do nothing about it is pointless. It's the emotion connection to then go on and do something, and then telling us a real story behind there. So in terms of narrative of your company, so if you've got an existing company, it's important to go into this in a little bit of detail. And I'm going to just gloss over this because I think Lara will probably go into this in terms of elevator pitch. And you will get the slides, so you'll be able to have a look through this. But it's important to talk around your company's history to really open the door, honesty and transparency, like the last slide. And if you can, include the photos and videos, use that information. People like to see that. People like to see you telling a story through pictures and images. Case studies, another great example. Here's some Firstport case studies that we've used. And it's just a little blurb, images. There's an element also bamboo in the middle there. It's a great kind of thing to catch people's imaginations. There's a strap line. There's this is a good, well-branded organization. It's probably quite clear what it is, and there's information to explain what it is that they do. This explains what Firstport do through case studies. Is a really good example there. So I suppose in terms of using that engaging content, it's connecting up, reminding you to use that engaging using those the people that you're trying to engage with. And using the information that we just passed through just now, and matching that information up to make sure that you build a decent story for the relevant people. And I think that in terms of writing for social media, just a few ideas that that we would always have in there for our clients at Firstport. Don't assume that they'll read loads and loads of stuff. Have the important information right at the front there, so you can win money from our tweet here. You can win money. Applications are open. Get an application in. Click on the website here. Come on along, and there's a wee image there to explain it. This is calling social innovators, and also look at what's out there already. So personality also matters. So brand personality, we talked about that already. Twitter's one here is quite a good one. Sorry, we can't come to the phone right now. Leave a message after the tweets. Quite cute. I like hey girls is a hands up if you think. So really good. So it's getting you to respond to the tweet right off the bat. And also CIA is quite a good one from the CIA there. There's other areas in terms of using social media. So Mrs. have developed empowerment pants and an empowerment program. So they've got two brands, the name of the company and the actual brand of the thing that they're selling. And they connected up with well-known celebrities who are able to retweet them because they've just connected up with these people through whether it's Social Enterprise Scotland or Social Investment Scotland, I can't remember. Lara will be able to remind me on that one, I'm sure. And Grace Chocolates, we've reached out to these guys and said, isn't it great? See what £25,000 of Build It funding can do, and they would retweet saying, yes, it does, and it's been great, thank you. And also don't miss out on live events, things that are happening just now. Make sure that you do capitalise on things that are happening, current affairs, because they do make people engage more emotionally with the story. So just to recap, remember who you're trying to engage. Is it the clients or is it the customers that you're trying to engage? Clear on that vision and your mission. Have them written. Good purposeful branding really does pay off. Your brand, having that unique value proposition and being really clear on that. Your brand voice and the brand personality. So we had those 5 in there: sincerity, excitement, etc. Your brand identity, why is it you? Who's your target? Using your target audience language and selling those stories that actually are emotive and have connection and emotional connection. And always be faithful to your vision. That's the end of my presentation. I think that.
Thank you so much, Colin. That was so much in there, so much food for thought, and super interesting. A lot of people have messaged already saying, can I get my hands on this? So yes, just to let you know, everyone will follow up with each of the attendees signed up to the session with the recording and a little recap PDF. So don't worry, you'll have access to everything, the slides. So you're good to go. You'll have lots of things to work on if you fancy developing an exercise, working on your brand voice, that sort of thing. So again, please do take the time to pop any questions that you have in the chat. My colleague Naomi, who's also on this webinar, will prepare questions for the Q&A. And then let's just jump to Lara now.
Jessie, I wondered whether Colin might want to answer some of the questions that came through first, because there's some specific on tone and other things before I do mine, because mine's slightly different. Colin, I don't know if you want to answer some of the questions.
We can do. Let's see if Naomi would be ready for that.
Okay.
I am. I'm ready and I'm here.
All right. So. Let's switch things up, guys.
Well, Lara, just to clarify, Lara, you're not getting off lightly. You'll be involved in the answering of some of these too.
Well, I will go through then, because a few have come in, Colin, as we've been going through, and I've seen there's been quite a lot of people responding on chat, which is great. I think it's helpful when we're all helping each other. But perhaps one of the first questions I've pulled up to start with was someone had asked what questions might they ask themselves to clarify whether they're dealing with clients who need a service or customers who need a service. So can you just talk a little bit more about that distinction between clients and customers?
Yeah, so I suppose the way that I would describe it is that customers will demand a service and they'll be prepared to pay for that service. And that usually you would have an element where your service or product will sell for more than will just break even, so that you get that little bit of profit, or certainly over a period of time, or as you build up momentum with sales, or that you get enough of a profit from each sale, that you build that momentum and you have enough of a profit to use that profit to reinvest over to help the social beneficiaries. Whilst I think that it's not always helpful to think of things as financial, where you as a customer would pay money but a client wouldn't. It's not always helpful to do that, but for simplicity it is because from a customer point of view, they will buy something because it's based on demand, but the client, you've identified a social need and that they are going to be delivered, or they're going to receive a service based on need. And that's really the distinction. So you need to be able to price up that value. And I think a lot of the times that people make a mistake is that they put in the buying social, which I know is what this is what this is about, but the buying social as a value for a customer. We need to understand what value, physically, what financial value people would place on that when you're branding things or when you're pricing things up. And that's a really interesting thing. But having that clarity of customers demand a service and you'll sell that for a price that's high enough to get profit, and the clients are the social beneficiaries.
Thank you, Colin. Perhaps, I mean, it's I guess it's drilling down in terms of customer again in my next question, but it's how would you encourage people, if they've got quite a wide audience, to really target and drill down to who they should really identify and perhaps put their marketing, whether it's marketing budgets or time, it could be a time perspective. How would you encourage a group to really drill down there?
Yeah, having that list of people, so going back to the business model canvas or having a business plan, whatever you want to do, but I like business model canvas because it makes you say, well, the customers, and I would always start with customers. If you're setting up a social enterprise, it's the customers, and saying, well, who are the customers, and who are the likely, the most likely to purchase the thing that you're trying to develop. And then you're going out to those people. So yes, time is a factor, but if you're going to do it, you've got to do it right. So probably focus groups, going out to your target audience, understanding the kind of, I suppose, how much people would be prepared to doing that marketing mix, and understanding people's buying behaviors, particularly building that user profile. So once you've got that user profile, you can start to build the well, not just content, but the platforms that you're going to use as well. I would say that's going to be a key thing.
Yeah, no, thank you, Colin. It's interesting. I know that Jessie and I have been doing some work around the Buy Social campaign in terms of targeting. And it's interesting. I think we're used to operating in a sector that tries to be incredibly inclusive. And obviously, I wouldn't want to discourage inclusivity. It's what our sector's always about. But when you start to talk to people about marketing, you're almost trying to, it feels perhaps slightly uncomfortable for some groups sometimes, I think, because they're so used to trying to include everybody, not target a few people. And I think that's why maybe social enterprise organisations sometimes struggle with that targeting element.
Maybe it's not about, you don't have to leave anyone off, but if you focus your effort, your time and your budget, you can know that like this is your key persona that you're focusing on most of your work. And then you have a couple others that, are good to get in touch with. Maybe the touch points can be further apart, so that's a good way to do it if you feel like you're speaking to several people and it can be confusing.
Another way to look at it is the other side of the coin, where you say, well, if you were given £100,000 of a grant, what would you do with that as a startup? What would you do with that to target your beneficiaries, the social beneficiaries? What would you do with that money? So who would you target? Is it anybody, or are the people that are most affected? And who are the people that are most affected? You could do it the other way around and say, well, but the reality is that unless if they won't pay the money, then they're not going to be customers. So it means that there's a financial barrier there, but you've identified that they have a need. So it's that's why that separation is really important. Otherwise, you end up with a business model that is in the middle here somewhere, where you're just getting enough money, and you maybe that's reinvested back into basically delivering to those people. They're maybe getting some impact, some social impact, but it's not really hugely impactful. Or not having the impact that you really set out to do. Having, providing physical activity or yoga or sport or whatever for isn't necessary. It's a good thing if it's done purposefully, but if it's not done purposely, then you're bringing in money and you're making it happen for those people. People are getting healthy, but a lot of businesses out there are doing that already, regardless of whether they're a social enterprise or not. So it's actually, that's the thing that distinguishes social enterprises from an impactful business, or private business.
No, thank you, Colin. I am just going to ask, there's quite a lot of chat. It's great everyone's so engaged, and I know some of these topics will come up in some of our follow-on boot camps, which I guess will give you a bit of a rundown on what's coming up in some of our other sessions. But I'm going to ask you one more question, and then I'm going to bring Lara in, just if that's all right, Lara, just so that we make sure we've obviously still got plenty of time for you and questions. We can always come back and bring Colin back in as well afterwards. So I guess it's a question again, and it's quite a unique thing for social enterprise, but we tend to be organisations that run with the staff team and the board of directors. So someone's put a question here on how do they convince their board that they desperately need a rebrand and a refocus?
Well, you first of all, you look at your target audience, and then you understand their wants and needs, and then you start building your story, and then you tell the story to them. It's very, very similar in that respect. I think that going back to the business, I would always say that this pulling together a board report to explain your thinking is the best way to tell a story. And I'm involved with a few organisations whereby I would be involved in the writing of those reports, and we would want to see a compelling argument that then means that they've got a decision to make. And the argument is that the brand isn't quite right. And then you have to then explain why the brand isn't quite right. So you would be explaining that it's not reaching our customers, that there's a, well, first there's a problem. Problem is you're not reaching out to the relevant people. It could be that you're reaching out to clients, but you needed the brand to make money. So you need it to reach out to the customers. Therefore, you're explaining who the customers are, going back to that user profile, understanding the customer breakdown, and bringing that to the board and saying, this is who we're trying to target. Does this brand really match up with this this target group? And that's probably the reinforcement that's needed. It really is going back to this and using what Lara will talk about in terms of the the kind of explaining yourself in an elevator pitch. That's really going to capture it for a for a board.
Can I also say an interesting thing is that someone in the chat mentioned instinct, and I think that for a lot of small organizations, even if we're several people, even if sometimes we have volunteers that have worked with us for a while, there is a bit of that instinct of what the brand is about, who are the customers, who are the clients. But until you really stop and try and put it on paper and try to work out, okay, who's that person? Maybe how many of them are we talking to? What are really their interests? What are their pain points? Like that exercise, even if you do it alone first before your board, or if you do it as a group, those things are helpful, because as soon as you start to put things on paper, it just kind of focuses a little bit, what you believe versus what is real. And then you can also start to look a little bit if you have data available to back up those assumptions. So that's always a helpful exercise.
Yeah, no, I remember someone once saying the phrase "think in ink" to me, in terms of, like, as you're thinking, sometimes it's helpful to write things down, because you really do assess your thinking process a little bit. So it's I always believe it's quite a good exercise to write things down as you're trying to make cases as well. So I'm conscious of still.
Naomi, can I just say one more thing in terms of storytelling?
Colin,
reading a business plan, and it was about 12, 13 pages of a story. It was the most compelling story. It wasn't a business plan. It was pretty hopeless as a business plan. But they got through to the next stage of our funding. But that was an excellent story, because it really told, and that's why they got through, on the basis of a fantastic story as opposed to a good business plan. So storytelling is really key, because it's engaging the people and the audience. Sorry.
No, absolutely. It's a good point to finish just this little section on. So good not to brush past that, I think. So, and I guess the elevator pitch to some degree is, how do you capture that story into something that's quite succinct? So I guess that leads very nicely into Lara and what you're going to talk about in terms of that elevator pitch.
Yeah.
So over to you.
Thanks. Thanks. So, and thanks, Colin. I think what Colin's done is given an excellent kind of overview of all the different elements you need to think about in this as you develop your branding and your marketing. I suppose what I'm talking a little bit about, it's called the elevator pitch, but I just want to go behind the elevator pitch and think, why do we need an elevator pitch? And one of the things, I work for the Social Enterprise Academy, as Jessie said, and like some people who mentioned in the chat, we've got quite a vast amount of people that we appeal to. We've got funders, we've got sponsors, we've got beneficiaries, we've got young people, we've got communities. And it was getting quite complex, is what is our brand message? Who do we appeal to? And it's really important that all staff are on board as well. So what the elevator pitch helps you to do is to really help staff hone. When they get asked, what do you do? Or what does your organization do? That you're all singing from a similar hymn sheet, so that any one of your staff can be your ambassador, can speak for you and know and be a compelling ambassador for what you do. So that's partly what this elevator pitch helps to do, just hone down to a few things. So that's the first thing, just in terms of context. The other thing is what Colin was talking about, which is the target audience. Now, I know in the Social Enterprise Academy, depending on who we speak to, we will change some of what we say and how we say it and the tone that we say it. Because if we're speaking to young people and we're trying to get them engaged or the teachers engaged in what we do. That's quite different to how we speak to a corporate who we need to engage. Having said that, the elevator pitch helps to bring together some of the key things that you will do or say across all those target audiences, but your tone will change and the emphasis might change. So what I suppose I don't want people to think is go away, write one thing, and that fits everybody, because it doesn't. You will need to nuance and change and adapt to the people you are speaking to. And that's why, as Colin was saying, knowing your target audience, knowing what their pains are, what their needs are is absolutely critical to having an elevator pitch. So an elevator pitch normally is something that, you know, as everybody knows, you get in the lift, someone says, what do you do? And you've got, you know, 2 minutes to tell them what you do. So that's kind of where that elevator pitch came from. But it's the way that we bring together and make succinct our compelling story, essentially. So I'm just going to share with you some things that the Academy includes, and I'm not by any means saying that this is the definitive way to do it, but it would be helpful to see what your thoughts are. And Colin, please, you know, feel free to add. I'm just going to share my screen for a minute. So the key thing, as Colin was saying, is who are you speaking to? That's the most important thing, to know who you're speaking to. Now, obviously, if you get into a lift, you don't always know who you're speaking to, but very often just one question to that person, or if you're in a group setting, in a networking event, you know, the first thing you would just do is ask them a question to contextualize who they are, so that you can adapt your pitch a little bit. Just knowing who they are is critical. So the first thing is this that I mentioned: speak from the heart and not from the script. As social entrepreneurs, whether we're the head of our business or whether we are a more junior staff, we're in this because we feel passionate about what we do. And that passion and that heart is going to be what's most compelling, not some brilliant words that you've written down. They will help, absolutely. But it's that passion. People remember how you left them feeling, not only necessarily what you said. So speak from the heart, not from the script, is absolutely key. And these are some key things to include, I suppose, in a succinct elevator pitch. The second thing that we try to do at the Academy is to be bold about our why. And if I ask many organizations, tell me about your organization, what often happens is people will tell us what they do. So I'm a PR company and I, you know, do PR, or the Academy, we're a learning and development organization and we do learning and development. You know, we sell soap. That's what we do. We sell soap. Many of you will know Simon Sinek's work and start with the why. So if I'm a PR company, I help to get people noticed. I help to make people shine out there. Why do you do what you do? Not what do you do? And so, you know, for the Academy, we used to start by saying things. Hi, I'm from a learning and development organization. We help people to learn and develop. But now we start with our why, that all around the world, people are stepping up to make a difference. And these people are profoundly extraordinary people, and they need support. They need to build their confidence. They need to be sustainable, and we help them to do that. So that's much more compelling than I'm from a learning and development organization. So start with your why. What's the problem you're helping to solve? What's the pain you're addressing? And how you're contributing. Very short and succinct. The next thing in an elevator pitch, if you've only got, you know, 3, 4, 5 minutes to make the impact, is what is the impact of your work? So that's absolutely key to get that succinct. And, you know, in the Social Enterprise Academy, we help people to build confidence, become more sustainable, and make a greater social or environmental impact. That's what our work does. That's what it helps them to do. So being clear on your impact. And then this one, Colin mentioned this, highlight what sets you apart. So what is it about you that's different? You're in a very competitive market out there. So if in 3 or 4 minutes, all you can do is what makes you different? In the Social Enterprise Academy, what sets us apart? Our learning and development is interactive, it's experiential, and it impacts people's mindset and behavior, not just their skills. That's what sets us apart. There's 1 or 2 other things that we add, but just be very clear on what it is that sets you apart. And the last thing is make an ask. Be bold, make an ask, or at least connect to their need. You know, what Colin was talking about, it's demand-led. If you're selling something, it's demand-led. So tune into that and make an ask. So, you know, if it's asking for money, if it's asking for contacts, whatever it is, be clear about what that ask is. So those are the kind of 5 key elements that when we try to hone our elevator pitch, and then we shared that with all staff. I mean, staff helped to develop that, but all staff, if you ask them, you know, what's your why, what's the impact, what's the difference that makes us different, and what are we asking this particular group of people, our staff can come up with some quick phrases for all of that. And that means that whenever they're out there, they can pull on 2 or 3 things. And some of these might be a wee bit different, depending on the target audience. But we have a common narrative that all of us can pull on. And it's not that easy to get that summarized very quickly. So, Colin, I'm going to just invite you if there's anything you want to add, or Jessie on any of that, Naomi, just to add before we open it up.
I was only going to say I thought that was a great point to come back on, that kind of making a connection or an ask at the end. I think very much, you know, and it comes back to that point about sales. If you sometimes come across and you're all too pushy, people actually go away and you think you've done a great pitch and they're like, God, they didn't let me get a word in edgeways. So, you know, that critical point, I think, about making a connection or having an ask, and actually it's really hard if you've only got a very short amount of time, but you almost need to find a way of listening to give yourself a reason to have a follow-up email reason, or a reason to give them a bell. So that connection point I thought was a really helpful one to drill in on.
And I think, you know, I mean, it's obviously everybody says it, but often we don't do it. But the more you know about the other person that you're speaking to, and as you say, really listen, really try to understand what their issues are, what their demands are, what their pains are, and you can then adapt slightly to fit in with them. I mean, you stay in your integrity, so you don't want to be a chameleon, you know, but just understanding what they need and how you can give them what they need is really important.
Yeah, no, thank you, Laura. I could see Colin was about to just come in at the end of your slides as well. So, yeah. Colin?
No, absolutely, and Lara's definitely an expert in in this. So it's really great to see you speak, Lara. I think that storytelling is key, and yeah, reinforcing what you've just said there around the ask. I remember, in our Launch Me program, I remember somebody delivering a pitch, a 5-minute pitch. And I know that's not an elevator pitch, but a 5-minute pitch, and forgot to ask for any money when they were asking for investment. And they just forgot because it's not something that they needed to necessarily do in their minds. But they didn't ask for the money, and it put people off. It was, well, they've not said what they need, or what they want. So there's not that call to action. Great telling us that story, but there wasn't the call to action. It's like, well, so I absolutely agree with that. I think, but knowing your audience, when we work with investors, when we're trying to get investment, one investor, a private investor, is different from another private investor in terms of their motivation. So you have to try and do as much research as you can on who they are. And they're different to a lender like a Social Investment Scotland or somebody like that who's got a different sort of motivation to lend and different reasons. But and grant funders, they're going to be different entirely. So understanding them as much as possible is so important, and I would agree with what you said, Lara.
Yep. No, thank you, Colin. Again, I've seen elevator pitches before, and you go away and no one's you've actually been invited to pitch for money, but not said how much you want. And I think we have a sector that's sometimes, again, it's that fear of the money word, or they don't quite like to ask. And if you don't ask, you don't get,
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's definitely worth remembering. I'm just conscious we've got just over 5 minutes left. If there's any questions that come through or anything we want to go back and revisit, I can see lots of people in the chat have sort of said that the session's been really useful. So a great start to our bootcamp series, I think. So
I have a question. I'll jump in. Would you say that it's fair that the elevator pitch and all of the things that we've talked about, it's a living thing and it can change over time as the organization change? And how often do you think you would kind of need to do that exercise, even if it doesn't translate right away into your comms and marketing? But how often would you kind of need to check in and be like, okay, like where are things standing? And
yeah, I think that's a great question, Tracy. And it comes back a little bit to this director's question. I think we need to be reviewing these quite often. You know, in the Social Enterprise Academy, every kind of 6 to 9 months, we check in with each other to say, you know, and it's not necessarily how's the elevator pitch going, but are we all clear on what the main stories are and what the main pitch is? Because who we're attracting is changing over time. And this is another thing, you know, when you speak to your directors, is COVID presents us with a unique opportunity to review what we're doing, to reposition ourselves. And we have to be doing that. We have to look at how we position ourselves going forward from COVID. So I think, see, it's not you've done it and that's it. Come back to it every six months, check in, make sure that people are still on the same page, they still know what the pitch is, and has it changed? And is there a new target audience that you're trying to attract that you have to change that pitch a little bit for? So absolutely, it's a living and dynamic process.
I think that the thing that is unlikely to change is is your vision and your and the elements of your mission. There might be parts of your mission that have to change, but it's generally going to be the same. So your strap line is likely to be the same, but the story might need to be changed in terms of the brand. You might have outgrown your brand and realised that it's not suitable. So something that's suitable in Glasgow or in Inverness might not be suitable for London or Madrid. Or you're going to have to some degree reinvent yourself depending on your audience. In the same way that an elevator pitch is a hard session to go through, because who is it you're pitching to? An elevator pitch to quickly explain your business to somebody is has got to kind of find out, well, have a look at our website to get more information, or here's my card, or here's my card that I've sprayed with Dettol or whatever it is, to kind of contact me if you've got any more questions. That's the the kind of action. But if it's around customers and engaging customers or engaging grant funders, then yeah, of course it's gonna evolve depending on your audience. But the fundamentals around your vision, it was in one of my slides. I still would say that you want to remain true to your vision and remain faithful to the vision that you had, which is that strap line, which should encompass everything that you do. So I think it's important to always do that. But yeah, going back to your strategy. In fact, there's quite a few boards that I would say that a strategy, having subgroups. Strategy and finance is one that I'm involved with the charity that I'm on, and finance is such an easy thing just to go to and always go to. Make sure that the money's happening. Well, no strategy. What is the strategy aligned up with what we're there to do? And that's a harder thing to look through. So it is worthwhile every year to actually look through what it's you're doing, and whether it's achieving the impact, financial and social impact that you're trying to have.
What I loved as well, Colin, sorry, Naomi.
That's okay.
What I loved as well, Colin, in your slides is when you talked about like the emotional power of stories, whether kind of you have an ask or not for your audience. And I think that it's so hard also, we talked about like checking in maybe regularly with, not your brand per se, but sort of like the way you express it and things like that. I think also taking the time to look at your impact is super important. You know, sometimes, especially if you're a team of a few people, I know I do social media, for instance. Maybe once in a while, I'll hear from someone who wrote to us and say, hey, I love this initiative that you did. It was really helpful. I don't always take the time to turn to my team and tell them, oh, hey, like we have this feedback. So, you know, it's good every once in a while as well to make sure that you check in with your team, that you almost kind of list your accomplishments. That sounds weird, but it's true, it's important. And then that also helps feed into that story and that emotional story that you're saying about yourself. You can pat yourself on the back a little bit as well.
Yeah, that's so important for motivation, isn't it? Because, you know, it's hard. And I think particularly at the moment, or if you're at an early stage, you know, keeping the momentum up at the moment is quite difficult. So reflecting on those successes can be really important just now. So I'm just in case there's any last points, I feel like the ruthless timekeeper. We've got 2 minutes to go. Are there any just last little comments? I think there've been so many useful tips that have come out of today. Like I say, the feedback's great already, which is brilliant. Just a last top tip that you want to leave with people, Lara or Colin?
I mean, I suppose what I would say, especially for social enterprise, is that we often see branding and marketing as a kind of nice to do. You know, we don't have enough money for it, but actually it goes to the heart of how we sell. And if we can see it as part of our sales strategy and really marrying up with our sales strategy, and that's what's make it more compelling when you go and say we need some funding or support or help for this, because actually it's part of our sales strategy. It's not just a PR job.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Colin?
and just, you know, I mean it is going back to basics and understanding your business, understanding the things that you're trying to sell, and understanding who you're reaching out to with relevant content, and when planning it out. I mean, it's, you know, there's no point in doing the scattergun. I've been looking through the chat, and, you know, the scattergun approach doesn't really, you know, it's you'll feel like you're not having any impact because you probably aren't. And, you know, and saying, well, you know, what is going to have the most impact? Well, let's plan it out and work through it. And, you know, social media, there was something about social, I know this is off topic a wee bit, but social media platforms, setting out a weekly, you know, update content management system. You can get these things downloaded and really easy, and then you can just be, you know, just changing things and tweaking things. Really useful.
Colin, that's like the perfect lead into some of our upcoming sessions that I was going to just ask Jessie to just close on, in terms of what's coming up in our next boot camps, in terms of the marketing and communications kind of tips and speakers that we've got, Jessie.
Yes, sure. So, you know, we have a lot of interesting sessions coming up, so please do join. It's free to get tickets. The next one tomorrow is about your digital and social media presence. How can you assess how things are looking at the moment and how you can refine efforts? Then we are talking about setting up, maintaining, or driving traffic to your website. Session 4 is about cohesive multi-channel communications. I know for a lot of people today, me included, sometimes it's tricky you have lots of things you want to talk about, you have lots of different audiences. So how do you kind of focus your efforts, and how do you do this in a way that kind of makes sense and stays cohesive? Session 6 will be on social media channels. We'll also have a session about the press, media, and influencers. How do you pitch your story? How do you get some coverage? And then finally, we'll have a session about audio, photo, and videos. How do you leverage that kind of content to tell your story, also to sell your products and services? And then we'll wrap up with practical tips if you are looking to launch a campaign or a product or a service specifically online, because that's our life right now. So yeah, hope you'll find the other session themes interesting, and we'd love to have you there. I'll pop the link to sign up in the chat right now.
Thank you, Jessie. And I think you've said it in the session. Thank you for coming along. I know you'll probably want to thank Lara and Colin as well, Jessie, but it's been great. I think this has been a really brilliant start to our bootcamp series. So thank you from me. Yeah,
it was great. Honestly, I think we packed in so much into a little 60 minutes. So that's a challenge if you take part in webinars, you know, yourselves. So thanks so much, Colin and Lara. This was really great, and yeah, really helpful for everyone. Clearly, you know, looking at the chat comments. So thank you again.
Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah, thanks for inviting. Yeah,
Yeah.
lovely. All the best.
All the
Thank
best.
you all.
Bye, everyone. Have a good
Bye.
evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye.